This is the first time in history when the Soviet Union collapsed, a little over 20 years ago, which no one believed would ever happen. But when it did happen, for the first time in Galus, in exile, there is no place in the world where there's a concentration of Jews who do not have the freedom to be Jews. Unprecedented. And of course, if you think about all the different luxuries that the world has at its disposal, the poorest person in America today has more wealth than the richest kings living 100 or 200 years ago, who didn't even have plumbing, didn't have electricity, didn't even have Facebook. Imagine that. How could you live without Facebook? Baruch Hashem, I've managed so far. I haven't surrendered yet. But we're living in such incredible times. Medical advances. I mean, Israel is now at the forefront of stem cell research, potentially curing all the neurological diseases, ALS, Rahman al-Islan, and all the other, I don't want to list all the terrible diseases, and there's a potential for all of diseases to be cured. Theoretically, we have the models for everything. And even in practice, the number of lives that have been saved medically, and we can go on, turning seawater into fresh water. We have the technology for all these different things. We're living in incredibly good times. And in terms of spirituality, never before have so many Jews studied Torah the way we study today. We have Torah available in your phone. You can access thousands and thousands of Torah classes. We're living in exceptionally, unusually good times. This is all part of the Messianic process. We're basking in the light of Moshiach already. Aha, but you're going to tell me, but what about the terrorism? What about the pain and the suffering? What about the illnesses that we still haven't cured? What about the lack of shidduchim, lack of people who are single and can't find their mate, their soulmate? What about all the tzaras that we have in the world? We're living on a bridge. I remember when I was a child and my father, Oliver Shalom, would take me to the Rebbe, to Crown Heights, and we would cross the George Washington Bridge. And I remember, to me it was a momentous thing when we crossed halfway and it said a sign, "You've entered the New York State." Somehow you felt you were in New Jersey or New York. There was always this tension. So where are we? Are we in New Jersey or New York? Are we in Galus? Are we in Geula? There's this very shaky situation. We don't know where we are and who we are. We have so many doubts about things. You know, we're reading this in this week's Torah portion. The Jews come out of Egypt and they're confronted by Amalek, a wicked nation that starts up with them, wages war against them. And we're told that the word Amalek, the name of the nation numerically, because in Hebrew every letter is also a number, adds up to the word Safek, which means doubt. Amalek sows doubts. When? Baderech. When you're on the road, when you're in between two places, when you're on a bridge. When you're on a bridge, there are doubts, there are questions, gnawing questions that you can't feel comfortable and confident. The bridge is shaky. The bridge sways in the wind, and you feel insecure. And then when you travel in New York State, especially if you get close to Buffalo, you see signs before you get on the bridge freezes before every other part of the road. You start getting cold. Amalek, it says, Asher karcha baderech, he cooled you off. He desensitizes us. So being on a bridge could be very problematic. So how do we deal with this bridge phenomenon? There are two approaches. I'm sure some of you have heard a very popular song to the words of Rav Nachman of Breslov. Kol ha'olam kuloi gesher tsar miyad. The whole world is like a narrow bridge. V'ha'ikar, but the essential thing is lo lefachid klal, not to be afraid. And Reb Nachman, of course, doesn't need my endorsement, but no one argues with him. When a Jew has the bitachon, he has the trust, he has the faith, and he believes in the words of the Torah, when he believes in the words of the Rebbe that told us very clearly that we are living in the Messianic times, that we are on the verge of crossing over that bridge, and we're expecting it any moment, that takes away the fear. But there's more than that. You know, every group has its own jokes. Hasidim have this joke. I don't know who originated it, but the joke tries to compare Breslov Hasidim with Chabad Hasidim. So I hope the Chabad Hasidim here won't be insulted. The Breslover have a tradition that if you're a follower of his, even if you end up in Gehenna, Gehenna is the Hebrew version of hell, even if you end up there, Reb Nachman, the great tzaddik, the holy man, will come and pull you out by your payas. Breslov Chassidim have long payas, and it's very handy in pulling you out of a place that you don't want to be. That's what the Breslovers say. However, the Chabad Chassidim say that when a Chabad Chassid ends up in that nether place, that very hot place, the Rebbe comes to us and he says, here's $1, Hatzlacha, success in your new mission. We don't look at the bridge that we're on as a challenge not to fear. Certainly we don't have to fear it. Certainly we have bitachon and trust. But that's not the contribution of Chabad. That's not the contribution of the Rebbe. What the Rebbe tells us is that this bridge that we're on is part of our challenge. It's part of our mission. This truck driver was driving this 18-wheel truck, and he comes to an overpass, and it said 12 feet clearance, and his truck happened to be 12 feet high. So he thought he's going to make it, so he rushes into the underpass, and he gets stuck there. Oh, within a few minutes, a state trooper comes speeding from the other direction. He goes over to this truck driver and he says, you got stuck. He says, no, officer, I was delivering a bridge and I got out of gas. Our Rebbe told us, you're on a bridge, you have a mission. Deliver the bridge into Geula. Take it with you. It's not there to be an obstacle to overcome. It's there as an obstacle to transport with you into Geula, into redemption. Take it with you. There's something very special about a bridge, the period we're in, that connects two different periods. Without going into the philosophical depth of it, whenever you have two opposites, and two opposites seem to be connected, it represents a higher dimension of godly energy. Midnight, for example, when the plague of the firstborn occurred, was a moment that combined, that joined together night and day, and it has this very transcendent spiritual energy. The energy that we have today in this period is incredible energy. We are living in unprecedentedly high spiritual times. Yes, there are negatives in this world, but the Rebbe told us how to look. I mentioned before that the Breslover slogan is V'ha'ikar, the essential thing, Shlei Lefachid. You know, the Rebbe, everyone has words that they always use over and over and over again. There were a few words that we often heard from the Rebbe, sometimes a dozen times in one talk. One of those words was Ikar. V'ayid v'hu ha'ikar. And furthermore, and this is the essential thing, Hamaisa hu ha'ikar, the deed is the essential thing. He always repeated that word Ikar. And I don't know who figured this out, but someone figured out if the Rebbe used that word over and over again, that word had very, very special relevance. And they figured out that the word ikar numerically, those who like to dabble in gematria will appreciate this, is the numerical value of mamash. Another word that the Rebbe used, which happens to be the Rebbe's initials, mamash, really, truthfully, actually, substantially, and many other words that could be used to describe what the word mamash means. But what is the Rebbe trying to teach us? By the way, the word mamash and ikar has the numerical value of Lubavitch as well. So there must be something there about the word mamash. Mamash means real. It's real. And this, I think, is the key. One of the questions that I was supposed to be talking about is, what do you do when your spouse is constantly on their cell phone or you don't communicate? We're living in an age, and this is the challenge of the age, of virtual reality. Nothing is real anymore. You communicate with a machine. You communicate with texting. You communicate with every way of avoiding to have to speak to another human being face to face. Panim el panim, face to face. We try to avoid reality, because reality can sometimes be painful. So we look for ways of not having to confront the other person. That is the challenge of our age. The challenge of our age is, do we believe in virtual reality or do we believe in reality?